Hello and welcome, Mehdi here back with another video in the series of R001 revision for your May exam 2018 Maes Knoll gym scenario. This will be a continuation of the first video in our series, which was related to networks. Well, this video will cover network security, and we're going to relate it as much as we can to your scenario. So let's get started. Okay, in terms of your case study and where does this link to, it will link to the same bullet point that we discussed in the first video, methods by which networks may be created, and it will also link to the same section of your scenario 1 in your case study. And in the first video we discussed what are networks, different type of networks, and we also discussed different hardware related to setting up a network. So in terms of network security, we need to understand few elements of how to set your network security. So the first one is your service set identifier, which is a unique name that you give to any wireless network. So if you go to a public place, gym, hotel, restaurant, and you want to connect to their SSID, to their wireless network, to their wireless access point, on your phone you usually see the closest wireless access points. The name that appears on your device is essentially SSID. They can either have they can either hide their SSID or make it public, depending on what setting they have set in their router. So SSID must be used by all devices to connect to that particular wireless access point. To connect to that wireless network, you have to set your SSID. And as we discussed, again, you can go to the router and set it manually to a specific name. And we're gonna look at the example of that at the end of this video. So with public SSID, you're setting it to broadcast your wireless network everywhere within a specific range. So that means the devices in the range of your wireless network can access your network and can connect to your wireless network. Automatically, this is set to a default value. It could be talk 01 or a specific number at the end of it. But if you want to disable this so that only people who know what the exact SSID is can discover your wireless network. So by default, again, anyone can see what the SSID is. If you hide it and it's not public, you have to tell people, okay, what the SSID is. If you hide it, obviously that will improve the network security. It is harder to detect, but it doesn't make it bulletproof. So that means that it does not prevent attacks on the wireless network. So how do we protect a wireless network? As we discussed previously, wireless networks are less secure than wired. With the wired connection, you physically have to tap into the wired network to access the network. Whereas with the wireless network, everything is broadcast. The radio waves are broadcast everywhere. You can intercept those radio waves and get access to the network. Well, we can use different encryption techniques. There will be multiple encryption technique that was in your textbook that I will cover. I will cover one or two more that it's not necessarily in your textbook, but I think it's important for us to go in detail of all of the encryption techniques available in terms of how to secure a wireless network. Firstly, just to make you understand what they mean by encryption key. They refer to the password or the network key or the security key that you have to physically type in to get access to the network. So when it comes to wireless network security, you often will hear WEP, WPA, and WPA2, or AES, TKIP. What are these? So what you need to understand is WEP, WPA, and WPA2 are security standard protocols. So what that means is they come up with a specific protocol to secure a wireless network. The very first one was, I believe, was developed around 1999, and it was wired equivalent privacy, but it had a lot of issues. To fix that, they came up with another standard, which was named Wi-Fi Protected Access. The second version of WPA2 supersedes the original one and fixes few issues that the previous two versions, or the previous one and the earlier version of WPA had. So these are the standard security protocol, but they're not necessarily encrypting it. So these are the security protocol, but to encrypt those, you have to work with encryption protocol. So we have two main encryption protocol, which is TKIP and AES. TKIP used to be with the WPA and WEP. It stands for Tempered Key Integrity Protocol, and used to again work with that particular standard, the first standard, which is WPA. In the summary, we will go over this again anyway. AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, is the main encryption protocol used today to protect and encrypt most of the wireless network. So in a nutshell, again, the two one that you need to remember is WPA2, which works with AES. I did put a summary. I think it can be a confusing topic, especially in your textbook. They only talk about it for a paragraph. I have tried to expand this, but these are the summary 4 bullet points. I believe it's 4 bullet points that I want you to remember. So WPA2, Wi-Fi Protected Access 2, is the improved version of the original. The WPA only supports that the first version only supported the TKIP encryption, while the second version of WPA supports AES. So all the new at home, any business will use WPA2 alongside AES. So theoretically, WPA2 is not hackable, while the original version it was. The WPA1 it was. WPA2 requires more processing power than the original version. So again, if you memorize these 4 main bullet points about the encryption protocol, that would be more than enough for your exam. I will give you a couple of exam style questions towards the end of the video. But to move on, let's talk about the remote access to network. So in our scenario, we have a personal trainer who works for the gym. And if, let's say there was a scenario that the personal trainer wants to work from home, or they're offsite, but they want to access the files in the network has been set up, they want to connect to a network using the internet, they can do that. They can remote access to the network. This is depending on if the firewall has been set correctly, which we will discuss in a second, and allows the personal trainer to gain access to the network. If they do, they can access and they can work offsite or from home. So these are the advantages of setting up a remote access to a network. In terms of the security risk, obviously you have a risk of unauthorized access to the network. But you can prevent this using a firewall. So in the firewall, you set up a specific rule saying this particular device with this particular MAC address and IP address can gain access to the network, whereas the other devices cannot. So what is firewall? You can configure, essentially a firewall will set up or allow or deny a connection that is incoming from the internet. So if you have an incoming connection from the internet and the firewall has been configured to accept that particular incoming connection because it's recognizing the IP address and the MAC address of the device. It will allow it to go in and access the network, whereas any IP address that is from an unknown device, it will block it and they will not gain any access to the network. So if a network traffic is allowed, the firewall will let the user access the network from outside. A lot of places will ask you to, or ask the user to have an ID or password to gain access to the network. So you will see the SSID, you will click to connect it. Sometimes it comes up with the user ID or password, and if you fill in the correct user ID and password, it will grant you authorization to use the network. I'm sure you have seen some wireless network in restaurant or hotel. As soon as you click on the access, it will only access you to a specific page. That would be the sign up page. It could be a hotel or restaurant, and it requires you to fill in your information before they grant you access to their network. They use this for multiple reasons. They can use it for security, but also they use your email address for I'm not sure if they're allowed to use it for promotional material, but if there's a disclaimer there, they can potentially use it as well. So it's always good to read the fine printing on those web pages where you want access to a specific network. Alright, again, as we mentioned, hotel, restaurant, gym would use such settings. So our scenario, Maes Knoll Gym, will use this particular method to allow their members to connect to their wireless network. So what I've done now with this section of it, I have taken a screenshot of my router at home, and I want to go through the different settings in order to contextualize what we discussed up to this point. So we know about networks, we know about network security, but how does it fit in? How does it look like in terms of you actually going to the router setting and adding those changes? So usually when you log into a router, you have to add the router IP address, which usually is always 192.168, either 1.1 or 0.1. So that would be the IP address to access your router setting. So this is the homepage of my router. I'm with TalkTalk, and if we look at the two Wi-Fi settings that I have for the 2.4 gigahertz and for the 5 gigahertz, same wireless settings, same SSID. I could have a different SSID for the different Wi-Fi 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. I have set both of my one to home network. For obvious reasons, I have blurred the password. I think the next screenshot is for the USB section. So they provide you with a very nice diagram, so you can click on each section. So the previous screenshot was the TalkTalk router local area network settings and your wireless settings overview. In the USB device overview, this is quite important. This could come up in your exam. You can potentially use the USB port on the back of your router to connect a printer or another USB enabled device, to share that device with whatever device connects to your router. So we can connect to the router via wired Ethernet connection, or we can connect to the router via wireless connection. Whatever device is connected to that USB port, which in majority of cases would be a printer, you can enable the use of that printer connected to that specific port on your router for all of the users in your network. I haven't got anything connected. I do have a Wi-Fi a printer, but is connected wirelessly rather than being connected via USB. And in terms of the clients that are connected, the devices, the computer devices that are currently connected in my network to my router are currently 16. So around the home, from my desktop, the device that I'm currently on right now, to laptop, to different internet-enabled devices that are currently connected to the network. I could see which IP address is assigned to every single one of the devices that are currently in the house. There is, however, no smart fridge right now connected to the network. Anyway, let's go to wireless network. So this SSID, I have always set my SSID to home network. I could set it to anything. I could name my SSID to anything. But I have now set it to home network. So I renamed it, and I could adjust the specific security settings. So this is the security part. If you can see on the drop-down menu, we have multiple security settings to secure the wireless connection or our wireless network. So I set my SSID to home network. I have chosen WPA and WPA2 as my security standard protocol. The reason you use WPA and WPA2 because some devices they still use the old protocol, so it's your best bet to choose that security because it uses both security at the same time. In terms of your cipher type, this is your encryption protocol. So I set my security protocol to WPA and WPA2, and because we said that the WPA1 works with TKIP and AES work with WPA2, I set my cipher type to both because I want for every single one of my protocol, which is the first one and second one, to have a specific encryption protocol. So use TKIP for WPA2 when you connect to devices, or use WPA2 and use AES as the encryption protocol. This is a screenshot of not my router, but any router will have a particular firewall setting. This will you will be able to add a specific rule. So you can add rules to allow or deny. So if the drop-down menu will either say allow or deny access to the network from an outside source. So coming further, incoming connection from the internet coming in, you can either allow or deny it. You can choose your protocol. TCP/IP could be a protocol that they use. A specific port that is being used. LAN destination port. You can add your comments here. Again, you can set this up to only allow authorized users to access the network. Right, so we discussed quite a bit about the network in the last video, this video about network security. So how would that come up in your exam? So I have a couple of exam style questions that I want you to think about. These are exactly from your textbook. So I have essentially got this from your textbook, slightly reworded some of them to link it to your scenario. So the first one would be, what are WPA and WEP used for? So you can say these are wireless standard protocol, and WPA is the more secure version of security protocol used in setting up security for wireless network. Why is WPA preferred to WEP? More enhanced security protocol compared to the original version that came out in 1999. And you have more, or better I should say, a better encryption protocol that WPA uses in comparison to WEP, because WEP uses the TKIP and WPA uses both TKIP and AES. Right, last one. The SSID of a Maes Knoll gym wireless network is set to MK gym. How is this useful to people in the center? So this would be the gym members coming into the gym, and they go on their phone, it says MK gym, they click. How is that useful for the member who wish to connect to a network? This would be probably a 2-mark question. The first mark would be it's easier for the members to identify the gym network. I think actually it could be a 1-mark question, and that would be your answer. It's easier for them to identify that this particular SSID belongs to this particular business. Okay, I've got a couple more exam style questions that I did manage to get from your textbook. So the first one is, what is the purpose of a firewall between a Maes Knoll gym network and the internet? So we could say the firewall can be set to allow authorized access or to grant authorized access for the personal trainer who wish to connect remotely to the Maes Knoll gym network. So that would be a really good answer to your to this particular questions in your exam. Another one could be, how can Maes Knoll gym set up its firewall to protect its network from unauthorized users? Set up specific rules in firewall setting, in router or in firewall software, to deny access from any unauthorized users trying to gain access from an unauthorized or unknown device trying to connect or establish a connection to the network. So that would be another good answer. Right, last one. Let's have a look. Explain how a security key is used when setting up a connection to a network for the first time. So you're one of the members of Maes Knoll gym. You want to connect to their network. Gone on your phone, you find out the MK gym. You clicked on it. It will ask you for a security key, for a password. The very first time that you put this in, then it will remember it from now on, and then it's a known network to your device, and your device is a known device to the network. So this is how it's used for the first time. You have to fill in your security key, which is again the password to gain access to the Maes Knoll gym network. Right, this will cover the entire bullet point methods by which networks may be created. So we covered both network and network security. If you have any questions, any comments, comment below, and let me know if you want me to cover a specific area again. Any questions, I'm willing to do a Q&A video for it as well. As long as we get enough questions, we will do a Q&A video. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.